Welcome to World Energy Television. I'm Richard Loomis, CEO of World Energy. And today we're hosting on-camera dialogues at Summer NAPE 2008. And we have the privilege of visiting with Clayton Williams. Sir, thank you very much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
So
At my age, I'm glad to be anywhere.
So you've been in the business for a while.
51 years.
And where have you been focused?
Basically, my operation, I started in Fort Stockton, Texas. Live in Midland now. I started as a lease broker, and I've been involved in gas pipelines, the service end. I've been in many facets, but where I really come to rest is the exploration and looking for new oil and gas reserves that, as you know, the depletion is our enemy. Many of the wells I've drilled are plugged, they're gone. That means I've been at it a long time too.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that exploration. I think today, oil prices are at an all-time high. And people want to know what's going on. Now, you've been in the business for a while. If I were going to ask you what's driving this, what would you tell me?
It was $2 a barrel when I started in business, which means a long time ago. Now it's over 100, and there's a basic supply and demand reason. The oil production in the world is 86 million barrels a year, a day, and the demand is 85. Only 1 million barrels a day leeway. That's why when Iran hiccups, the price goes up. But more seriously than that, I think the most legitimate estimate of what the depletion is 5%.
Now, depletion, that means that we're not producing as much.
That wells produce less as they finally produce the last barrel. Okay, so that then 86 million barrels a day times 5 is about 4.3 million barrels a day.
That we're losing in the supply.
That's right, and at 4.3 million barrels a day, we had in January that's gone in December. What else that means then, unless oil companies or independents like myself continue to drill and bring new supplies on, then there is a shortage because we're absolutely in balance today.
Well, and most of our supply, 70%, is imported.
Yes.
And in the U.S., we've been on decline for the last 20 years. Now, where is this oil coming from?
It all comes from countries, by and large. I think it's interesting. A lot of people think ExxonMobil are the big guys. Exxon produces about 3%, a little over 3% of the world production. I was surprised at that figure. BP, Shell, all the others would add up to 10%, the major, who the Democrats call big oil.
Yeah, big oil.
Produce 10% of the nation's, of the world's production. Another 10% or so would be like Russia. Well, Russia is almost a country today, but it's produced by countries, Saudi Arabia, Mexico.
And their big field is Cantarell,
Yes.
and it's declining like crazy.
Declining. Saudi Arabia's big field is Ghawar. It's at best level and starting to decline. You read Simmons' Twilight in the Desert.
Absolutely.
And so worldwide, then, if they were oil companies, they'd be more efficient looking for new oil and gas reserves. It's like we had the U.S. Post Office looking for oil and gas, you know, where we'd be there. So I think that's a serious thing, and I think it's important for the general public to realize what's happening, that if you want to blame Mother Nature, that oil is, in every oil pool is limited rather than water that tends to flow down the river unlimited and rainfall replenishes.
Well, we talked briefly about Mexico.
Yeah.
We've talked about Venezuela and Saudi Arabia as being countries, and they're organizing their reserves as countries. Now, in the United States, we can independently own these reserves. Are we doing any better managing our resources than those countries?
Oh, absolutely, because you got the profit motive. You're a free market, so if it's your oil you're producing, you're going to damn sure be watching that and doing a good job. Where the countries, like I said, the post office run the oil business, and then so much of their financial energy goes to social welfare or making a dictator like Chavez Venezuela instead of drilling and looking and replenishing. I think that's a good word, replenishing the oil that's depleting.
Well, and natural gas in the United States is a different story. I mean, we have seen some increases.
Absolutely. You've heard of the Haynesville.
Absolutely.
And the resource play, which are basically shale, are going to expand our natural gas capability substantially. And I said to the audience in West Texas that we need to be building nuclear plants. We need to be working on clean coal technology. Windmills, yeah, that's the hot deal. We're subsidizing it all, but we need to be bringing on new supplies. We need to start moving toward natural gas powered vehicles, all of that, because electricity can be generated with coal, windmills, etc. But transportation, basically, for example, you can't fly a jet on coal.
No, that won't work yet.
We will always need petroleum, and we will always, for eons, have oil, but it will be less and less all the time and more expensive.
But the consumer out here sees a gasoline price at $3.65, just recently over $4. What would you tell that individual about this business?
I tell him he's right to conserve. He's right to the lowering demand is one answer to depletion, obviously. I think you also need to be realistic, that you can blame Exxon all you want to, but all they have is 3% of the world production. So you got to deal with it. It's a free world, and if they cannot afford it, they need to cut the size of their car. They need to be maybe considering, and we as a country do, consider natural gas to fuel vehicles, because we're going to have adequate natural gas for the foreseeable future. A lot of solutions. I think maybe the first step is to quit whining and do something about it.
Do you think there's a potential? Right now, 97% of our transportation runs on the hydrocarbon, but it's oil. If we were to diversify that transportation fleet, this might actually work.
Sure.
I mean,
with natural gas, that's the key. For years, people have used natural propane, which is a natural gas. It's just in liquid form. So you just have to make an investment. I think the one worry on natural gas is that it's compressed. So it has a lot of pressure. If you have an accident, will it explode and burn you up? I think we have to be sure that we can properly answer that. I don't know the answer, but there's been natural gas vehicles that work pretty well, and it's going to be cheaper, maybe a little larger initial investment. I think we need to do that.